This is a quick video on a problem we recently had with our Bridgeport mill. It appeared that the display went out in our DRO. This machine's pretty old. The display dates inside appear to be somewhere in the mid 1980s. Basically what happened was everything was working, but the display blinked out. It appears that all the other controls worked. So we believe that it was one of many power supplies that possibly failed related to the display itself. Everything else looked good though. So here's the back of our DRO, just to give you some point of reference. Possibly the assembly number helps, but it's basically a 2-axis unit, and the serial numbers there. I don't know other folks out there what your serial numbers are, but if it's close, then it's likely you have a similar unit. The displays that are used inside are Beckman type displays. They have a gas discharge illumination, so they require a very high voltage of 180 volts. Current is pretty low, but this requires a special power converter that appears to have failed in our unit. I did check the output of this, and it was down in the tens of volts, so much lower than expected. I didn't know if some type of short may have occurred downstream to cause that, but once I removed the unit, it appeared that it had failed. So looking at the main power supply inside of the DRO, we have basically a common mode filter on the top right, goes into a transformer, and then transformer outputs are then rectified and filtered, and they go through linear regulators. So there's a 12-volt positive linear regulator, the 7812, as well as a negative 5-volt regulator, which is 7905. Part quality in this unit is actually quite good. It was back before the days of buying kind of cheap Chinese capacitors and such, so this thing has lasted almost 40 years without any known failures that we're aware of. Looking at the boards inside, the top right board that sits vertical is the display board. That display board actually has a power converter soldered to it, and this power converter is made by a company called ERG. ERG is still around. I was able to contact them, and they had this part number, which shown in blue, in stock. They only had one of them. I don't know if they have more that they're making, but it's basically a 12-volt input device with a 300-volt output at a 10 milliamp capability. So it's fairly low current. So it's about a 3-watt output. Looking at the diagram for pinouts, if you want to use a DMM to verify your input and output voltages, it'd be recommended. In my case, I had 12 going in, but it was, again, I think it was on the order of like 30 volts going out, 20 volts. So it was much lower than expected. Once I removed this, I noticed that when I hooked it up to a power supply, unloaded, the input current was actually quite high. I didn't push it too hard, but it was greater than a half an amp, even at like 6 volts. So I know I was trying to pull a lot of current, so I didn't actually push it. I didn't want to overheat the part on the bench top. Looking at the old and the new parts, the bottom one has a date code at 1984. The top one, I don't know if this is a 2015 era device, but if that is indeed the date code 1526, then it's probably the 2015 26th week. Once we replaced it, the display came right back on. So this was an easy fix for us. The only word of advice is that the printed circuit boards, not very high quality, so it's very easy to lift traces and pads with heat from your solder iron. So just take a lot of care when you desolder the part. You may end up lifting a pad, especially it's a double-sided board, so the side that has the part actually soldered down, it's a lot harder to wick out the solder or to use a solder sucker to pull it out. But yeah, just be aware when you start to pull that out, you may end up lifting pads, so you don't want to tear up the board. I was able to do it without destroying anything, so I was able to put the new part right back in, and we had success. Anyways, hope this helps.